One of my biggest criticisms of Skyrim is the cities. I love Skyrim and it's one of my favorite games of all time, but I gotta say that at times, the cities can be a bit boring. I think saying they were bad is a bit of an exaggeration, but I do think it would be accurate to say that they could have been done better. There were some great cities such as Markarth and Riften, but then you had tons of generic cities like Falkreath, Whiterun, and more. The purpose of this video is to look back to Skyrim and Oblivion and discuss how cities can be improved in the Elder Scrolls 6. I'll be bringing up as many examples as I can from these games, and specifically Markarth and the Imperial City will keep coming up because I think that these two are examples of cities Bethesda has done very well, so they need to look back to these two cities especially for inspiration. Anyway, starting off here, the first thing Bethesda must do to improve cities is make them larger and more bustling with people. This is a really obvious point, but it was such a significant deficiency in Skyrim that I need to mention it. Whiterun, which is supposed to be an important trading hub and center for Skyrim, was more like a large village or a small town. It was way too small in terms of size, and there weren't nearly enough people. Also, the various districts of Whiterun were far too minuscule to even be called districts. I think the Imperial City from Oblivion was far better done in terms of size, so in the Elder Scrolls 6, big cities should be more like the Imperial City and less like Whiterun. Not necessarily exactly as big as the Imperial City, but definitely around 1.5 to 2 times the size of Whiterun for the average large city. However, one thing I think even the Imperial City struggled with is it wasn't really all that bustling with people. That is, there weren't hundreds of people walking down the roads as there ought to be in a trading hub. And yeah, 100 people is a bit much, so I'm not expecting anything ridiculous like that, but I do want to see more NPCs roaming around in the big hubs. I know Bethesda has been going down the path of having less NPCs in their games and deeper interaction with them, but they still need to find a way to increase the number of NPCs roaming around in cities while at the same time preserving some depth of interaction. To summarize, I'm not looking for anything too off the deep end, just a reasonable increase in the number of NPCs and a reasonable increase in city sizes. The next important thing for cities in the Elder Scrolls 6 is that I want for each of them to have their own unique flair and atmosphere. This is something that was very inconsistent in Oblivion and Skyrim because I felt like I would walk into so many cities that all felt the same in both of these games. The cities in Oblivion and Skyrim were super generic at times, Oblivion probably less so. Some examples of cities from the past with great flair are New Sheath, Imperial City, Markarth, and Riften. New Sheath had a very unique vibe with its split, gloomy, and vibrant environment. It had very cool guards in the Golden Saints and Dark Seducers, had a variety of NPCs, and much more. Markarth was known for its roots in Dwemer lore, and the entire town had a very Dwemer-like feel to it that's present in no other Skyrim city. Finally, Riften was home to the Thieves Guild and the Ratway, which gave it a really unique vibe. On the other hand, you had cities like Whiterun, which was an incredibly generic and boring fantasy city. Dawnstar and Winterhold were also somewhat boring, partly because they were so similar in how they looked. Both were just generic snowy regions, which is pretty much what half of Skyrim was. There are definitely ways of making a frozen snowy city, while at the same time giving it a unique atmosphere. The college was a great opportunity to add some flair to Winterhold, but Bethesda didn't really do a good job of using that to their advantage. Bethesda, give me some flair in your cities. I know you can do it since you did it with all those places I mentioned earlier. Carefully plan each city out and make all of them distinct places with their own unique atmospheres. The third thing that needs to improve in the cities is lore. The cities in Skyrim weren't nearly rich enough in their history and their lore. Markarth is actually a good counterexample since we were able to do some quests and discover some things about the city's past, but most other cities were severely lacking in this aspect. Give us a couple of quests that allow us to explore the city's lore in some way, be it venturing to some hidden area within the city or to some far off place to gather historical records. No matter how small, each city has a story to tell, so let us discover that story by throwing some quests at us that allow us to learn more about the history of each city. Finally, to end things off, I've got something that's a huge stretch feature. I'll honestly say I have no idea how they would go about this, and that's part of the reason why this is more of an idealized video than a practical video, but I'm gonna say it nonetheless. Cities should change over time. That is, cities ought to construct new buildings and structures as time passes by. New NPCs and characters should roll in as time elapses, while current NPCs leave for other cities. Trading caravans should be in and out of cities constantly. The effects of weather and seasons should change how a city looks. Bandit attacks and the like should come in every so often and affect the city majorly. Plagues and sicknesses should strike from time to time, and so on. Like I said, this is something that would be very difficult to implement, and I'm not really sure exactly how they would go about it. But if they could do it, it would seriously go a long way to improving the cities in the Elder Scrolls 6. Well, alright folks, that is pretty much gonna do it for this video. As always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop me a like down below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more Elder Scrolls videos in the future. And of course, be sure to let me know your thoughts on cities in the Elder Scrolls 6 and how they ought to be. Do you agree with what I said for the most part, or are there some things you disagree with me on? Otherwise, I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video.